could have redeemed itself of its contempt by carrying out the elections. It would not have changed their majority. They still would have retained their majority in the assembly. Why didn't they do it? Well, because they were in the confrontational mood. They wanted to challenge Maduro. They wanted to bring him down. They were intransigent. They did not want dialogue or mediation or anything. They said, we will get rid of this man. So what does the Supreme Court say? You're out of order. You're in contempt of court. So anything that you do is unconstitutional until you correct the problems that we have indicated to you. So that aspect I learned by reading an enormous amount of documentation and information that you don't read in the New York Times, that you don't read in the Washington Post either. So we have a major problem. Now another manipulation. This farce of someone auto-proclaiming himself president. Well, here is the Venezuelan Constitution. If you turn to the article that Guaidó pretends that justifies or legitimizes what he's doing, it's Article 233 of the Constitution, you realize, and a first-year law student would realize, that the article doesn't apply. But they don't even need that. They just invent it. As I said, we have a problem not only of fake news, we have a problem of fake law. So they claim that this would legitimize it. It doesn't. But they keep repeating it. And the New York Times keeps bringing it. And BBC repeats it. And then Trump, on the basis of this fully unconstitutional action by Guaidó, Trump recognizes Guaidó. Major violation of customary international law. Violation of General Assembly Resolution 2625, violation of the Helsinki Accords, violation of the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action, violation of Articles 1 and 2 of the UN Charter, and of course violation of Articles 3, 19 and 20 of the Charter of the Organization of American States. So here we have all in one, a completely illegal, illegitimate, unconstitutional situation, and we have a media that is defending that is trying to persuade the people, yes, this is possible. And that reminds us, of course, of 20th of March 2003. That reminds us of the months in advance, in the run-up of the Iraq invasion, in which the press was complicit in manufacturing consent for the destruction of a country, for the destruction of Iraq. A war that the late Secretary General of the United Nations, Kofi Annan, repeatedly referred to as an illegal war. But what did we learn from the illegal war in Iraq, or from the illegal war in Libya in 2011? We learned that there is impunity, total impunity. Not only have you had the most brazen violation of the crime, of the ICC statute. You have the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Article 5 establishes the crime of aggression. Article 6, the crime of genocide. Article 7, the crimes against humanity. Article 8, war crimes. Well, here you have more. in Iraq and in Libya, and no one has been held to account. Not George W. Bush, not Tony Blair, not Barack Obama, not Hillary Clinton. They've all gotten away with it. And the New York Times is not saying that. Now, going back to the visit of the team by the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights in Venezuela, what is crucial is that Michelle Bachelet be honest in saying, look, I've looked into this, and we want to give advisory services and technical assistance to the Venezuelan people. We want to bring in humanitarian aid offered in good faith and without strings attached. But also, we want to condemn the causes of this artificial crisis. Venezuela shouldn't be in any kind of a crisis. Venezuela has more than enough to sell to the world. We want to facilitate Venezuela in selling its oil and its gold and its coltan to the world. And then everyone will be fed. Everyone will have the medicine that he or she needs. So what is necessary is a clear statement on the causes of the crisis and a condemnation of this kind of economic war as a crime against humanity. I mean, that is what must be said in so many words. And then, in order to fix, no doubt, Maduro and Chavez have made macroeconomic and microeconomic errors. I mean, they're ideologues, they're not technocrats. They've made many mistakes. But what country doesn't? What they need is good economists on their side. And I think, and matter of fact, I just read in the BBC an interview given by Jeffrey Sachs, professor of economics at Columbia University and for many years advisor of the Secretary General on the Sustainable Development Goals and on all sorts of economic matters. Jeffrey Sachs is condemning the sanctions. Jeffrey Sachs is condemning the economic war against Venezuela, and he is appalled, as he says in Spanish. El economista Jeffrey Sachs lanza una pregunta a cualquier gobierno de América Latina que siga el liderazgo de los Estados Unidos en la crisis Venezuela. ¿Estás bromeando? Are you kidding? Is what he's asking. You must be kidding. You cannot possibly follow Trump in this revolt against international law, in this revolt against the international order. It is totally contrary to all traditions in international law to go and recognize the pretender, someone who has auto-proclaimed himself president. I mean, where are we? We are in the post-World War II world. We are not in a world in which Hitler could manipulate and could bully the Czechs and the Slovaks and the Poles and everybody else and threaten, and we're supposed to have rules. We're supposed to have a UN charter that prohibits not only the use of force, but the threat of the use of force. We have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. All of these countries that ratified the covenant, many of them, 50 of them or so, have recognized Guaido. What's going on? Don't they realize that that entails a series of violations of provisions of the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights? And as far as the media is concerned, that blesses this activity. Don't they realize that they're engaging in prohibited activity, they are engaging in what can be termed war propaganda, saber rattling. That is specifically prohibited in Article 20, Paragraph 1 of the Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. But on it goes, and now we have the great fear because the United States is pulling out its diplomats and France is pulling out its diplomats from Caracas. Does that mean that the attack is imminent? That is what I remember of the days before the attack on Iraq. You remember that El Baradei and Hans Blix, the two United Nations inspectors, were in Baghdad, and they had been doing their work on behalf of the Security Council, trying to see, is there any weapons of mass destruction in this country? And they were saying, we have found nothing. And we've been here now inspecting all over and we find nothing. Well, they had to be pulled out because it was clear that the United States was going to attack, whether it was legal or not. And then, as I said, George W. Bush succeeded in dragging with him the so-called coalition of the willing. So here you have 43 countries that have deliberately revolted against international law and against international order. 43 countries that bear the responsibility for the crime of aggression, the war crimes, and the crimes against humanity that followed in Iraq. And now we have, of course, 50-odd countries that have recognized Guaido, and presumably would be the coalition that would applaud the Trump military intervention, if it happens, in Venezuela. Now, this is super, how should I say it? This is super dangerous because there are at least 8 or 9 million Venezuelans who are